Welcome everyone to Interconversations. Interconversations is a series of online webinars organized by the internationalization team here at the Department of Early Childhood Education at the Education University of Hong Kong. And I am Associate Professor and Associate Head for Internationalization here at the ECE department. And I am very excited to see so many international colleagues joining for this session today. Just to give you a little bit of context, right? So as many of you know, Interconversation was born during the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic in the attempt of our department to keep the international EC community engaged and also connected. And this initiative was very well received by the community. So we decided to continue to organize these webinars and to keep these interesting conversations going, right? So focusing on a variety of topics that are relevant to us, to early childhood educators here locally in Hong Kong, but also regionally and internationally. So for today's session, we have more than 180 participants registered, although now we are not everybody here, but we will be sharing the video of the discussion later. So many of us here from Hong Kong, also colleagues from mainland China, and also many other neighboring countries such as Malaysia, Singapore. Also, we have many colleagues registered from Australasia, Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. So many thanks to everybody for your interest and also for taking the time to join us in this evening, right? So it's really good to meet you virtually and to establish this connection with all of you. So for today, we have invited a guest lecturer in our department, and also I might say a very good friend of mine, to host and moderate this online forum. Her name is Miss Angela Chung. Hi, Angela. I see you there. So Angela, hello. So Angela has extensive teaching experience in early childhood education, in international and also in local schools and higher education institutions in Hong Kong and also internationally. At our department, Angela has been teaching modules on child development, multiculturalism, multilingualism. So she's a very experienced colleague. Angela herself was part of an ethnic minority group growing up in Ireland. And for this reason, she's very passionate about the topic of ethnic minority rights and education, which is connected to our topic today. So we are very happy and honored to invite Angela to be the host and moderator of this session. So Angela, thank you so much for doing this for us. All right, so let's welcome Miss Angela Chung, everybody. So the mic goes to you, Angela. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the lovely, warm welcome, Dr. Alfredo. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to be the host and moderator today for a topic area that is very, very, it's very meaningful and close to my heart, as you had described. And our topic today is multicultural education in early childhood. And before I begin, I would like to just explain very, very briefly to our international participants what would we define as ethnic minorities here in Hong Kong. So ethnic minorities refer to persons who report themselves as being of non-ethnic Chinese. Okay, so that would be what the consensus would say here in the statistics in Hong Kong. And multicultural education is an idea or a concept, an educational reform movement and a process that stresses that students, regardless of their gender, social class, and ethnic, racial, or cultural characteristics, should have equal opportunities to learn, excel, and thrive in a school setting. Minority children, whether they are minority because of their ethnicity, language, or social class, typically have more struggles in a school system that is catered for the majority. And multicultural education works to undo this injustice in the system. And this is the part that we are all, as educators, very, very passionate about. So very little is known about multicultural education itself in early childhood, even though children at these young ages are the most impressionable and vulnerable. So today, we are so fortunate to have four very professional and experienced discussants who will share with us our views about multicultural education. So I will introduce each of them to you. We have four of them, as I said, and each speaker will have around 10 minutes to introduce themselves and to give a short presentation addressing two key questions, which I will ask each discussant, and I will give them, I've already given these questions in advance. So each discussant will be sharing their knowledge and information with you, and we do hope that you find it useful. And then after the four presentations have finished, we will proceed to a Q&A session for around 15 to 20 minutes. And do feel free to put your questions in the chat box after we have finished the sessions. If there's a certain question that you would like to ask a certain discussant, please feel free to do so. Now, without further ado, I am very blessed and very lucky to have beside me Dr. Narine Kerelian, and she is our first discussant today. And Narine is an adjunct professor at the Department of Sociology at the University of San Francisco. So she's come all the way from San Francisco to join me here in Hong Kong. And the great thing about Narine's experience is she's had over 10 years experience working here in Hong Kong as well. So very familiar with both the US system and the Hong Kong Asian context. Her research lies in the intersection of migration and social policy, focusing on multiculturalism, integration, and social cohesion. And she teaches in a highly diverse and multicultural study body in San Francisco. So Narine, yes, take it away. I will put your slides up.
Okay. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Angela. I'd like to also thank EdUHK, Dr. Alfredo as the head of internationalization, all of the the staff support from EdUHK, as well as my peer discussants, and then the wonderful community that's here who's interested in multiculturalism, particularly in the early childhood years. I'd like to approach today's, at least my part of the discussion, through kind of the lens of kind of 3 points. But did you want to pose the question that you asked?
Yes, absolutely. So my first question to you, Dr. Narine, as you are now based in the US, and cultural competence, inclusion, and diversity is a hot topic. What advice could you give our teachers here in Hong Kong in order to implement this in the classrooms in the Asian context?
Okay. So for the first kind of question, I'd like to start off with place matters and understanding multiculturalism, if we can go down the slide. There we go. Okay, so why place matters in terms of understanding multiculturalism? So I think before diving into multicultural education or its role in the early childhood years, the understanding of and conceptualization of multiculturalism is really important. To understand that it's not kind of a copy and paste model, like, okay, we're going to take a look at a best practice in a completely different historical context, with a different context of social relations, of etc., history, of the composition of the population, and then say, okay, that understanding of multiculturalism is then going to be cut and pasted into our context to be utilized. So my colleagues and I, Dr. Giza Marat and Mr. Manoj Dahar, conducted a study on multiculturalism with Hong Kong characteristics, where we asked Hong Kong educators about their conceptualization and understanding of multiculturalism in Western and Eastern settings. And this isn't to say that it should be bifurcated as such, but to see if perhaps there are some nuances in the local context which could help us. And so I think that would be a good place to start, especially with educators, is to understand, how do our teachers who are operating in the classroom understand multiculturalism?
Yeah.
rather than saying, this is how it's understood in this context, we're going to copy and paste it within our school environment. And then as we come to a consensus on multiculturalism or how we understand multiculturalism, then we can talk about its implementation within the classroom setting. And then how teachers engage with pupils, capacity sharing across teachers, as well as the school system itself. So I'd like to continue on in the next stage. And talking about multicultural education in the EC years. So as you talked about, child development, et cetera, this kind of critical point, after the family as the primary agent of socialization comes the school environment, and EC is kind of that kind of next step where children are socialized outside of their family context. So starting in the EC years, why the EC years? Because you're fostering inclusion from the start, right? So the pupils gain access in terms of ideas about inclusion, et cetera, from the start. But this isn't, and I highlight this isn't just something for minorities, for ethnic minorities, or in the US, our discourse is more about racial minorities, looking at racial disparities. So that's kind of one of the differences that I've noticed going back to the United States. Our key conversations are about race and racial difference, whereas in Hong Kong, there's an ethnic minority focus. But even so, I would say that that multicultural education is also for the majority population to understand how to build bridges across cultures, and especially in Hong Kong, which boasts itself as Asia's world city, this global city, this interconnection between, let's say, East and West, to prepare the population to engage with others. And in terms of capacity building on the ECE educator side, well, sometimes perhaps educators would say, well, maybe multicultural education was not part of my curriculum. How am I supposed to know what to implement? Do I have a toolkit to choose from? I need to be resourced in order to do so. So I think it's really important when we talk about multicultural education that teachers don't feel like they're a lone force trying to then interpret what it is, how to engage with it, how to develop toolkits, right? And to really build the capacity amongst educators and institutions. So there we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really good points made there, Dr. Narine. And that actually now brings us to the second question, which is, what are the main differences? Like you spoke there about social justice and social harmony, which we see more of here in Hong Kong. How can both work alongside each other?
Okay, so in my last slide, maybe if I can go here, within the Hong Kong context and also in neighboring East Asian kind of global cities, there's a big focus on social harmony as a way for, and this is about ethnocultural groups and ethno-racial groups to live together. But I think if we stick solely to the idea of social harmony, to have harmonious living amongst the groups, but not bring up the justice aspect, which is understanding the power disparities or the marginalization aspect of perhaps some minority groups, that it will be challenging to kind of address multicultural education. So I think understanding social harmony that's inclusive of social justice is really important. And I have a text here that just came out to kind of show out of the US about how the discourse about multicultural education it kind of differs. As you can see here, reimagining diversity, equity, and justice in ECE in early childhood, whereas a lot of the conversations in Eastern context are about social harmony. So language matters. But beyond that, I think it's also important to look at it, if we include social justice within social harmony and build on the strengths of the population, right? And the values that are here, that we can take a dual strengths-based approach. What do I mean? I mean, not only looking at the strengths of ethnic minority children, which is a lot of the conversation about multiculturalism here in Hong Kong is less about gender identity and multiculturalism in that aspect. It's more focused on the ethnic aspect of it. So that's why I'm speaking about ethnic minorities, is to say they have to value the linguistic, cultural aspects of those children as assets, and not to see it as a liability or some kind of deficiency, which precludes them then from becoming part of Hong Kong society, right? So taking that strengths-based approach, but also from the teacher's aspect, not saying, well, what is Hong Kong lacking? What are the strengths of Hong Kong teachers that we can build upon in order to construct this kind of multicultural education system that we're thinking about? So in that sense, taking that dual strengths-based approach. And then cultural humility. So when I was talking about multicultural education and building capacity for educators, there has been critiques about using the term cultural competence, which historically I have used myself. Models of cultural competence seem to denote that, okay, now I'm competent about a particular culture, I can go forward, I don't need to move on, etc. Or that you need a lot of time or taking a particular program to build that competence. And moving towards cultural humility, which is a mindset, a perspective that, okay, I can self-reflect about my own values, belief systems, etc., and also accept and respect other cultures around me. So the development of cultural humility, not only within teaching staff, but also amongst the pupils in the class, so that you have that kind of respect across cultures, whatever they may be. So yes, that's kind of my contribution to today's discussion, and I thank you for giving me that opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much, Dr. Narine. Absolutely fantastic points to note there as well, with the social harmony and social justice. That was the thing that kind of stood out to me, was how you can work towards a dual strengths-based approach, and also the exposure to children at a very young age. And even if they do go to schools, like say perhaps they don't have children who don't look at that, who don't look like them, how do teachers bring in materials that best expose ethnically Chinese children to various different types of children that you can see in Hong Kong?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So our next discussant is also a colleague of mine, Dr. Ho Cheong, and he is an assistant professor here at the Department of the Early Childhood Education at EdUHK, and he's a program leader of the Professional Development Program on teaching of Chinese language to non-Chinese speaking children. And Dr. Ho Cheong has more than 15 years of experience as a teacher educator in early childhood, and he regularly writes on multicultural education in our local newspapers. So, Dr. Ho Cheong, it's lovely to have you on this discussant board, and I would like to start off with the first question to you. And my first question is, so what would you see as the nature of the problem that gets in the way when it comes to multicultural education? So all teachers would say that we are fair to all children, but still some children are being disadvantaged. So what are the main problems that need to be addressed?
So Angela, the first question is, what is the nature of the problem? To me, I think the nature of the problem, let me start with, let me start it this way. Okay, I purposely, I deliberately put up this poster in this PowerPoint slide because I think the topic today is really a good one, the multicultural education in early childhood. And Angela did a great job in choosing this topic. The reason being, in the local Hong Kong context, I think a lot of people, they will, for a typical forum like this, they will have the title of something like supporting the Chinese learning for non-Chinese speaking children. Okay, so I think most of the discussion, a majority of the discussion in Hong Kong, they focus very much on the learning of Chinese for the NCS children. NCS means the EM, basically. I would say that this focus is something that focuses very much on the difficulty of the children. Indeed, it's true that many of the NCS children in Hong Kong, they experience difficulty when they learn the Chinese. But if we focus too much on this aspect, we are actually focusing on the deficiency of the children. Okay, they lack the knowledge of Chinese. then I sometimes wonder why don't we focus more on their strength, just like what Narine had just said, the strength of the kids.
Yes.
Why not we think about, let's say, some of the EM children in Hong Kong, their spoken English is even better than the Chinese kids. Why don't we focus on their strength, their English speaking ability, and why do we just narrowly focus on their learning of Chinese? So I think the learning of Chinese is one problem, is one issue, but more fundamental to this is a concept how the teacher understand the different ethnicity. I think this is a more fundamental problem. So I think nature, I would say that one of the very important issue is whether the teacher understand or in their daily living, they have the experience to live with people from different diversity. So that's why I think the topic of today's forum, the multicultural ed in early childhood education, is a very good topic. Okay, so this is the nature of the problem. Then your second question?
Excellent. Great points there as well, Dr. Lam. So my second question is, can you share some examples of what you have found in your research, which in-service teachers have tried and tested in regards to, Chinese language learning and multiculturalism?
I will illustrate. Maybe let me. So what I want to do is I want to invite all of the teachers here to reflect about this question of fairness. So are we really fair to different people, the people of different ethnic groups, or do we hold different assumption about different ethnic groups? So that means we are not treat them as equal. What do you think? What do you think? Are you fair? I think this is I put down silly question here because I think it is a silly question because every time I ask this question, when I visit the kindergarten and I ask them this question, I think all of them say to me that, oh, we are fair. We treat every kid the same. Okay. Okay. So, yes, we want to be fair to everyone. I think this is what the teacher always think. But what I want to say today is, I believe it's very difficult. And basically, it's not possible to be fair. And the quote here, I get it from a paper, and I like this quote very much. It said, I'm not a racist. I don't see color. Everyone is the same to me. I'm colorblind. And this belief kept me from recognizing that I too have been indoctrinated in the racist institutional lexicon of the established curriculum. In other words, I will interpret it something like, the more I say that I'm colorblind, actually reflecting that I'm not colorblind. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me give you some local example to show you that indeed we have some assumption about different ethnic group of people. Okay, my first example, an Indian father came to a kindergarten. He wanted to submit a form and he rang the bell, and then a teacher went to answer the door. And then seeing the father, the teacher turned around and then asked the other teachers in the kindergarten, who has ordered a delivery? I think all of you will agree that this is not a satisfactory practice. And indeed, the teacher felt really embarrassed and then said sorry to the father. But sometimes when I discuss this with the teacher, then the teacher will argue that maybe I think this teacher is forgivable. Because you think about it, the first time I order a delivery, and then the delivery man came, is an Indian. And then next time I order another delivery, and then came another Indian as a delivery man. And then the third time order delivery, and then also came an Indian. So very naturally, by induction or by generalization, then you will have this kind of idea that, oh, maybe, okay, Indian, this is deliveryman. So it's just like if you do not have friends who are Indonesian, and then the first Indonesian that you know is a domestic helper, and then the second one is also a domestic helper, then you will have an idea that maybe a lot of them are domestic helpers. And when my students argue using this reason, then I sometimes talk to them 2 points. One is I will say that, is it a problem that we ourselves in our daily life, we don't have Indian friend? If you have yourself some personal friend who is an Indian, maybe you won't make that generalization, okay? And then the second point, I will talk to them as a teacher, even though a large number of them are deliverymen, the deliverymen, many of them are Indian, but even though, as teacher, should we perpetuate this kind of stereotype to the kids? Should we reinforce this? So in our teaching, should we use example like this to teach the kids? So a teacher, I think we need to do something to create a hope for the kids that, okay, everyone can be a doctor, okay, and everyone can be a lawyer, and then everyone can also be a domestic helper, all right? So this is, as a teacher, I think this is what we need to do, all right? And then I give you, let's look at another example. So a teacher said, Gurpreet is a Sikh, but we are a Christian kindergarten, and we have religion lessons. And then his mother talked to the principal, and then Gurpreet was exempted from attending the lessons, the religious lessons. Because of his religion, he must wear a turban, and our kindergarten allows him to do so. Allows him. Why allows him? Okay. He also must eat halal food. As such, he cannot eat the snack prepared by our kindergarten during the tea time every day. But in his birthday party, we have prepared halal food especially for him, so he enjoy with the other kids. If you know that, actually Sikh is completely different from Muslim. And actually the teacher here mix up the two religions, which are completely different. Maybe because more often Islam is more often mentioned in the media. Maybe the teacher came up with the idea that, okay, NCS kids, okay, the religion must be Muslim, okay? And so she prepared the halal food for this Sikh kid. And so this is something that I think is not quite acceptable, all right? But then when I share the example with my student, then sometimes they will say that, indeed, it's not satisfactory, but how can I know that Sikhism is different from Islam, okay? The government have not provided training for us, and we have no idea that Sikhism and Islam is two different religions. And well, indeed, this is also true that the government has now provided some professional development program for the teacher, but this is often conceptualized as mainly for those NCS coordinator in the kindergarten, which means in the kindergarten, there is one teacher who is assigned the role as an NCS coordinator. And NCS coordinator, they are often the one who come to this professional development program. So in other words, the problem is conceptualized as something that I think maybe it is because of the idea that we focus very much on the learning of Chinese of the NCS children. So they see it as a problem that only those responsible have to participate in this professional development program. So very small number of teachers have now attained this kind of professional development. So in a sense, the teacher, it's reasonable that many of the teachers don't understand this. But then what I will talk to the teacher, which are my students, then I will start to demonstrate with them by putting my hands together, putting my palms together, like what you do as a Buddhist. And then I demonstrate to them, if I put my palms together and say, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, okay? If I go to a church and I put my palms together and say, Merry Christmas, would you accept this? Would you think this is offensive? Then they will say, oh, you shouldn't do this in the church if you don't put your palm together and say Merry Christmas. Then I will ask my student, I just mix up the two religions, and I haven't received any training from the government about the difference between Christianity and Buddhism. And then my student will say, oh, come on, it's common sense. Christianity and Buddhism is different religions. Then I will ask them, is Islam and Sikhism are different? It is also a common sense, all right? So this is how I will respond to my teacher. Okay, so because of the time, maybe I skip the two examples. I go to the last example. The last one, this is my own problem. Okay, I remember a couple of years ago, I have two daughters. This is 2 years ago, and they are now, one is P5 and one is P3. And my two daughters have been learning Bhangra, an Indian dance, for quite a number of years. And then one day before the lesson, a Punjabi mother and my family entered into the lift to the dance studio. And I said, oh, we are late. And then the mother, she often sees us mingling with the Punjabi and asked me a question. Do you speak Punjabi? She asked me this. Do you speak Punjabi? And I say, my immediate response is, and I say, no, of course not. But as long as I said, of course not, then I think, oh, I said something wrong. Because why, of course? Okay, we are, the Indian can learn Chinese in Hong Kong. Why can't we learn Punjabi? So what I want to illustrate is that this kind of idea is really deep-seated in our mind. And it is not easy for us to figure out that all this problem in our understanding of the different ethnic groups. So I come back to my initial point. I think it's really difficult to treat people of different ethnic groups as equal. I think it is very difficult. But of course, we definitely need to think about this. Okay, so that's basically what I want to say.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ho Cheong. Really, really excellent points there, especially when on your second question, which was adding on to Narine's points, Dr. Narine's points of teachers having assumptions about people's religion, background, what they eat, and getting these cultural and religious things mixed up and not doing the research. You don't need to go to formal training to just ask those questions to parents, to the child. What is it that you practice at home? Can you tell me more about your religious practices? Can you not everybody is expected to know everything. And I think that the problem is that teachers feel that I should know everything. I should have got the training. But instead of actually asking the actual family themselves and checking, they've gone ahead and made these assumptions. And that is where the issue comes in. So really, really excellent points there, Dr. Ho Cheong. Thank you so much for your sharing. Right, we're moving on to our third discussant, who is Mr. Jeffrey Andrews. Jeffrey is an Indian by descent and born and raised here in Hong Kong. He is one of the first ethnic minority registered social workers in Hong Kong who is committed to helping refugees and advocating for minority rights. He received the Secretary of Home Affairs Commendation awarded for his dedication and service and outstanding contributions to enhancing racial harmony and integration in Hong Kong. Thank you so much for joining us, Jeffrey. And my first question to you, Jeffrey, is, can you share with us some of your experiences growing up here in Hong Kong and having local education? And what methods were implemented to ensure that your needs were met? For example, language support and cultural sensitivities.
Well, thank you so much. Just lovely having this really lively discussion. Yeah, my name is Jeff. I'm born and raised in Hong Kong. I'm just going to share screen a little bit so you guys can see a little bit of my upbringing, if that's okay. So this is what schools looked like for me as a minority. So when I went to primary school, well, kindergarten in itself was just ethnic minority based. Then I thought, okay, primary school should be different, right? No, it was like an assembly line of a factory. In the morning, it was all local Chinese. And then at 12:30, when it's time for them to shift, it would be ethnic minorities that move in at 1 p.m. And this was kind of where the classroom looked like. In my school, in my class, I had Nepalese, Indians, Pakistanis, Filipinos, and we were taught two languages. One was English, and then we were given a choice on the second language, which was either Hindi for Indians, Urdu for Pakistanis, and Cantonese, which many of the Filipinos and some of the Nepalese would take up. So for myself, my parents said, look, you're going to be in Hong Kong for a long while, learn Cantonese. Then I moved into secondary school, and I thought, oh, you know, they can't segregate us on different, it's not morning or afternoon, it's full-time school. But even then there was a way of segregation. It was in the upper floors were all local Chinese, and then the lower floors were all ethnic minorities. And I was like, okay. And this time we were given again two languages. One was English, and maybe someone in this chat, in this Zoom community, anyone kind of take a guess what was the second language offered to ethnic minorities? Just take a guess. What do you think, as ethnic minorities in Hong Kong, we were given a choice in secondary school as a second language? Someone said French, Cantonese. Yes, it was French. Correct. Very odd because, you know, for ethnic minorities in Hong Kong, mostly again Indians, Pakistanis, Nepalese, and Filipinos, French was not something you were going to use in Hong Kong in the long run. I do wish I studied harder. Because where I work in today, the community center of refugees, a lot of them are French speaking. But today, 5 years of failing that in school, I only remember one sentence, which is "Je ne sais pas français," which means I don't know French. So it was a tough one for minorities. You know, going into secondary school, already we had a viewpoint that if you went past Form 3, good on you. That means you go into a little bit of higher education, which is Form 4, Form 5. But at that time, at Form 5, we all had to do a public exam, and you needed 2 language passes in order to go past into Form 6 and 7s. Now, for many of us, you know, French was just not our mother tongue, was not something that we were equipped well with. And so a lot of us were failing on that language in itself. For me, unfortunately, and many in my community, many of our young youths, we sadly walked the wrong path. It was so much more easier to join gangs and go into, you know, menial jobs like security and construction. And that was kind of a vicious cycle that I ended up growing up into. You know, just to show you again some more photos of, you know, this was just my community. Very few went on into higher education, or they had to take different routes, not the mainstream routes of education. So yes, that was the kind of mindset that I had, that, you know, Hong Kong was 2 different worlds. One was for local Chinese, and then for ethnic minorities, it was survival of the fittest, or really the smartest.
Thank you, Jeff. I'll move on to question 2. So question 2 is, if you could advise our teachers on how and what they can do to ensure our young learners are seen and heard, what would be your advice to them today?
And that's a great question. I wish, first of all, that teachers would be asking more of this in Hong Kong. I understand the pressures and constraints of Hong Kong's education system on the teaching profession, but I feel teachers are not asking enough of that. Look at this photo that you see here. You know, this photo consists of so many different ethnic groups. Even as an Indian, we had the North and South and the West and the East. They're all different. Then there's the Pakistani and the Nepalese community. The dynamics are so different. But what sadly happens, because we're all termed as EMs, which by now, I'm telling you, 20, 30 years on, I'm having a fatigue with this word. But what's happened is we're always lumped in a group as ethnic minorities. We're not seen as individuals with different cultural complexities. You know, sometimes we're just called EMs. You know, people just say, oh, look at that EM. Here's the EM. They are like this, like that. And that is also not fair. There's so many dynamics, family backgrounds, statuses, financial statuses. And I feel in Hong Kong, the teachers do not have you know, the cultural competency, but I really love what Dr. Kerelian just said, the cultural humility. I think that's, I'm going to use that quite often now because it's really important. And I do see that now with the younger generation of teachers, that they're going out of their way to come into my center before they even in their studies, they're coming in to do some research and understanding, you know, coming out of their comfort zones, not just doing it through a PowerPoint presentation. So something I'm really proud of in the last couple of years that I've been doing here, I'm just going to skip very quickly through, sorry, is we're doing cultural experiences, you know, asking the Hong Kong public to coming into Chongqing, because, you know, first of all, Chongqing in itself, where I work, is one of the most culturally diverse places. And in itself, people can understand the differences between an Indian, the Pakistani, the Nepalese. And then just like Dr. Ho was saying, you know, people get confused between basic religion like Hinduism and Sikhs and Islam. And that's what we're doing now, is having groups of teachers and churches and schools and students to come in and understand our walks, our community. I'm taking them to religious institutions. I am going through the different foods, the religions, the complexities and all that. And I think that's really making a huge difference, especially with the local population right now. After the pandemic, so much isolation has happened that they realize there are so many ethnic minorities stuck in the system, not of our own fault, but actually it's the policies, it's the language. So back in the day, we would just be labeled as lazy, not working hard enough, but now they understand there's so many different dynamics to that. So I'm really hoping these are just some of the photos that we're doing. This is actually a group of young students from universities joining on our tours, and you can just see 2 hours later, they're so enriched. And a lot of them even, you know, understand, you know, the challenges of minorities and understand, oh, you know, different religious groups, what you need to practice better, what are the sensitivities. And, you know, I think sometimes also the word is, you know, oh, they're too troublesome. You know, it's too much trouble to teach an ethnic minority because, you know, they just lack the support, but actually it's the resources. And it's not impossible. We have so many good examples of ethnic minorities that have now gone into mainstream society. We have Leikwana, an amazing reporter of Pakistani origin who speaks and reads Cantonese, and she tells us about her struggle, that she had to fail and repeat twice in order to be where she's at. So we just need a little bit more support, and we're hoping that the school, it shouldn't be only the teachers. I think the institutions, the higher ups should have that kind of political will and community will to change things around. And I'm very optimistic, because as I see more and more young generations breaking through into many of the mainstream jobs that we have, and it's all thanks to the teachers.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for sharing your personal experience with us and helping our international communities and also Hong Kong community to understand your personal experience with growing up in Hong Kong. And that sort of ties into the point that you made about the kind of changes that you have seen over the last couple of decades, which is moving in the right direction. You are seeing more young people more curious, wanting to understand more, and educating themselves.
Absolutely.
You know, doing these group tours, which is so essential right now to enhance students, teachers, like societal learning.
Absolutely.
But there is a point that I would like to add, and you know, for yourself growing up here, and if we look at media, for example, how are I don't even like the terminology myself, like the ethnic minorities portrayed in the media. So we can talk about you know, teachers not having the support and, you know, the exposure, but think about the exposure that they do have, including young children. So say, for example, like the Young Post, South China Morning Post, you know, there are all these newspapers and media portray a very, very negative context. Oh, you used some of the key words there, like lazy. They are lazy. They are troublemakers. They are da 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 da. But they don't ever report on, oh, this reporter has done so well, etc., etc. And there is less of that seen in the media because it's such a sensational. They want the sensationalism. They want someone to blame. Right. So this is something I think that you have noticed, Jeffrey, if I'm right.
Really well said, Angela. Absolutely. Media are the first ones to kind of really bring about the issue of ethnic minorities to the mainstream public. Not many had any interactions except when they read the newspaper, except when they see those video features of ethnic minorities. And it's a sad reality. If you ask me 15 years ago, we would only be called Lama, South Asian, fake refugees, triad members, sadly, even worse than that. But I'm really proud now what the younger generation of ethnic minorities are doing is owning the narrative. And how are they doing that? I think this social media is a very powerful platform. And I'm really proud now. Many of the ethnic minorities are starting to host their own channels. We have a lady called Sandale, and she's fantastic. She does Cantonese video features and contents on letting the Hong Kong public know about our culture and how, having that kind of understanding on focusing on similarities but not on differences. But even if it is differences, about the uniqueness of that. So I think, you got people like Vivek, stand-up comedian, who does Cantonese. How awesome is that? You got Bobo, a guy who broke into mainstream, movies. And I think we're getting more and more younger. A young kid won the Hong Kong equivalent of the Oscars, a young Pakistani boy, even though he portrayed a refugee kid in the movie. But that was a great thing to showcase, hey, you know what? We're here now. We're not this neighbor, this others that just showed up after 97 in a UFO. We've been part of Hong Kong for about 100 years. So yes, we always now, I'm telling the young generation, when you have a chance to voice out in the media, do it. Back in the day, our parents would tell us, don't rock the boat. It's okay. It just doesn't matter. It's just the way it is. But now I'm really proud of the younger generation taking ownership, really portraying, hey, Hong Kong is unique. It's unity and diversity. That's what we need to be focusing on. And I'm not hiding my identity, my diversity, but I'm going to showcase that to you. And just like Dr. Kerelian said, Hong Kong is portraying Asia's world city. You talk about Belt and Road Initiative. We're here. We're all here, by the way. So I'm looking forward to the many changes. But like I said, we do need the rest of the community. And I think one of the things I want to end with my part is this allyship. I think in Hong Kong, we have a very pedestrian sense of Hong Kongers where, look, if it's not about me, if it doesn't affect me, I'm just going to go on my own way. And you see that. But I'm saying nowadays, when I look at, I'm a really bad habit of whenever I see any ethnic minority news, I like to look at the comment section because that reflects on what people say. But I must say, back in the day, it was always trolls and a lot of negative. But nowadays, I do see there's a lot of balanced outlooks of people like saying, hey, they're part of Hong Kong too, or hey, actually, you misunderstood that. So I'm, 10 years ago, I would just like, oh, it's just made my day worse. But now I'm like, oh, there's some things out there that people are starting to, so we're turning the tide. Yeah, I think we're heading in the right direction. Yeah.
Baby steps for sure. Baby steps. But
Indeed.
Every step forward is positive. Every small step. We can't expect such massive changes. It's a learning curve and learning process. And yes, a very interesting point about raising social media. I think a lot of people can associate social media as being quite negative, but using social media in the right way for good exposure, such as the example that you gave, Jeff, it's absolutely so important in this time, definitely. Thank you so much for your time and sharing, Jeff. Thank you. So let's move on to our last but not least fourth discussant, who is Miss Christina Lau. And Christina is a kindergarten teacher in Hong Kong with former experience being the non-Chinese speaker program coordinator. She is passionate about unfolding NCS children and has developed programs and activities to help them to integrate into the kindergarten setting. She is also currently studying her Master's of Education in our department. So, Christina, my first question to you is, you have experience being an NCS program coordinator in your previous school. What advice might you give to principals and educators to, in hopes of creating a more fair, inclusive and culturally sensitive environment in their kindergartens?
Thank you for your question, and I would like to have sharing on my PowerPoint. So, hello everyone, I'm Christina, and this is the photo that I'm the project coordinator in my previous local kindergarten. I have been working in a local kindergarten for about 6 years, and then we have organized a lot of activities. So in this photo, you can see that this is me when we are organizing an open day, and then we are creating an environment that's with the cultural elements on it. So in the open day, the topic is about different countries. So we have different classrooms. We have about 8 classrooms in the school, and then in each classroom we have separate in different countries. And in my classroom, it's about in Pakistan and also in India. And then we also invite some volunteers from the NCS parents, and then they help us to decorate with this environment. So you can see we have the flag, and also we have some henna paintings, and also with the costume, also they borrow to me. Yeah, so I'm putting on the clothes for this. And I think creating an environment is very important to NCS students and also with parents, because for them, you need to create, as a teacher, you want to create a sense of belonging for them, because they are in this school, and then they want to build a sense of belonging to this school. I am in this school, and then the school is also, they know my culture, they know about our culture, food or clothing. So you need to show your love and care to them. And we invite, this is a really great opportunity to invite them to create the environments together. And then we also put this in our open day. And then on that day, they have also invited their friends to come, and it's a really, that we spend a happy time on it. Yeah. So they're also willing to have the henna painting with us. So I think as a teacher, you can spot how your parent, so maybe some of your parent in your class, you will invite your parent. Oh, do you know henna painting? Or did your mom ever draw some henna painting on your hand? Because sometimes when the kids coming, like during Ramadan or during some festival, we will see that our kids, because we need to check for their nails, check for their faces. And then as a kindergarten teacher, we will check for the body every day. And then we will see, oh, today you draw the henna painting, right? And then they say, yeah, mommy drew this. Yeah, and their mommy also sent me the WhatsApp message that, oh, she is very looking forward to our new festival for this. Yeah, so I know, oh, that's the reason why you were putting on henna painting. Yeah, so I think as a teacher, you need to have good observation of your kids. And also you need to have a good communication with the parents too. Yeah. And yeah, these are my parents, yeah, from my class, and she also bring her friends to have the henna painting with it. So yeah, we put the henna painting on our hand. Yeah, this is the open day activity. And also, as a teacher, we see that some children that they have a good behavior, they will have the good manner. And in my school, we also have invite some NCS children and the local children to be the courtesy ambassador, because they can say good morning, 早晨. Yeah, we teach them, or sometimes they say in their own language, like Assalamu alaikum. It's okay. I think as a kid, it's happy to see that they are willing to say good morning, good afternoon, to have greeting with teachers. Yeah, so we also provide this opportunity to our kids. And also during the New Year activities, we also want NCS children to be involved in our New Year activities. So we have their Nona New Year flower market, and then they are going to sell the candy, the red packet, and also with the flowers. They get to know more about the Chinese culture. Yes, and also, yeah, the kids are buying, use some big money to buy the flowers, yes, in the Lunar New Year. And then we also make some books, yeah, for the NCS students. We have tailor-made with the book that with the students to learn some words because in Hong Kong, you better learn Chinese, and then perhaps in primary school, you will also learn Chinese. So we make a book for them to have revision and also put their face on it. Yes, and also we invite their, as a teacher, how to create a cultural environment is to invite more parents. Yeah, so you can see the last picture. We invite the parents to make some food, because that's the topic about our community. And then we invite the parents to make some, okay, would you like to make some cultural food? And then she is very, very willing to do this. She even make, I think it's 5 dishes. 5 dishes for us. And yeah, 5 dishes for us to share with our students and also with our colleagues. So I think, yeah, it's happy. They're very happy to have this opportunity to engage in this in the school. Also create a sense of belonging to the parents. And yeah, on their right-hand side, you can see we invite them to have their henna painting. And then we also send them some gifts from the halal food. Yeah, halal food with them. Yeah, this is what I mentioned, halal food. So as a teacher, you will have different topic. Yeah, sometimes maybe in food theme with the food. So you can also introduce the halal food to your students with, because these are the common food that the kids will buy it in supermarket, very common for this, like M&M, chocolate biscuit, they all love it. And when they know that, oh, it is a local, that some of our students are Muslim, they will buy this kind of food. Yeah, because this is the halal food. They get to know more about different culture for this. Yes, and yeah, creating a cultural environment is really important for this. And also we put some flag, different countries' flag on our classroom to create their corner, to decorate our classroom together with kids. Yeah, and also some food. As a teacher, I also invite my kids to draw. Okay, draw something, some famous food in your country, like the curry chicken, like the curry rice, and also with sushi, because my kids are from different countries, from Japan, from Pakistan, from India, from also from Thailand, Philippines. They draw their famous food, and they're very happy to see these food are on the board. Oh, Miss Christina, I saw this. Yeah, they're very happy for this. So I think make a conclusion with it. As a teacher, you need to have good observation and try to let your kids and parents to engage to create their a cultural environment together. Yes, hope that I can answer their first question.
Thank you very much, Christina. Absolutely brilliant advice for our teachers. And yes, really, really good examples there too. Thank you so much. So my second question is, you are currently learning Urdu, the official language of Pakistan. Can you tell us more what inspired you to learn Urdu, and how has it helped you as a kindergarten teacher?
Well, for Urdu, I remember that the reason why I want to learn Urdu is because I am the project coordinator, and I wanted to enhance my communication skills with the parents, because most of the time you're not only the teacher to make the teaching plan in your lesson, but also you need to have the communication work with the parents. So because for some parents, I think they will use their mother language like Urdu, and then the second language would be English. So it's better for the teacher to have a greeting first, because sometimes when you just say hello and then they just answer you, okay, hello. And if their situation you say assalamu alaikum, they will be very happy for this. Oh, you know my language. Oh yeah. And then we can create a harmony relationship. Yeah. It's really important to build a good relationship with parents first, and then they will talk to you more about this. Yeah, they were willing to talk to you. Even sometimes I didn't understand, but I try. Yeah, I try to use my knowledge to understand with it. And yeah, they always put their smile on their face, because you have created a good relationship with them in the beginning. Yeah, and then I just joined the Urdu class in Tokwa. There is a Pakistan teacher, is very helpful. Yeah, and also she's passionate to teach Urdu. And also you see the picture that my teacher have made the food. Yeah, because her brother is in Chongqing Dasha, in Jimshacher, that building. And then she made their cultural food, and then she also introduced the names to us. She said, without pandemic, we will go to that building, go to that restaurant to try to say Urdu. Yeah, this is another way to train out Urdu words or Urdu skills of this. I think as a teacher, because I want to build a good communication skills with my parents, so that's why I learned Urdu. And luckily, I also made some friends that they are from their social worker or their designer, because they also need to work with the NCS, with the ethnic minority. So that's why we gather together and then we learn Urdu together. Yeah, and you can see some food made by my teacher. Yeah, some drinks, and also biryani, means the yellow light rice with this. Yeah, so it's a happy memory, a happy moments to have this. And also, I also go visit to Turkey. There is the Istanbul temple. And then I also learned the culture that I need to put on the scalp. Some will say hijab. Yeah, hijab on my head when you enter to the Muslim temple. I think this is also the way you get to know more about the culture, and also get to know more about Muslim culture. And as sharing, in Turkey, I also go visit to a shop that they are selling with the mats. You can see there are a lot of pattern for this, and this is their culture. I think you get to know more about different culture, and as a teacher, you need to be open-minded. Yeah, not only the language, but also with the knowledge, how you gain the knowledge, how you gain some ideas by traveling or by talking to parents. You also need to gain some more ideas for this. And it is very important to let you to know more about different culture. Yes. I think it's very important. So I would encourage the teacher from Hong Kong kindergarten to learn Urdu. Even in the beginner level, you also need to build a good communication, good relationship to the parents. I strongly suggest.
Thank you very much, Christina, and excellent advice, especially when it comes to communication and the involvement of parents and the families. This is what it goes back to what Dr. Ho Cheong was talking about. Many teachers were making assumptions, not understanding about, their children's cultural heritage or background. And the fact that you went out of your way, asking those very important questions, checking and involving parents to come into the school, involving them into the community. And that is a very, very important part of that relationship building. And the fact that you are showing that you are respecting others from different backgrounds by learning their way of greeting. And then, of course, a parent's going to, wow, she's learning my language. She's respecting me. They feel seen. they feel heard, they feel involved, they have, as you said, you use the words, sense of belonging. And that's exactly what we want to create, an environment for that, so that parents don't feel scared. Oh, I don't speak Cantonese. There's probably that fear. Oh, I don't speak Cantonese. And so therefore it's like, oh, I can't do these activities. I can't speak. But the fact that you're bridging that gap shows respect from your side, and it's making them feel more comfortable and included for the children and their families. So it's excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that, Christina.
Thank you. Yeah,
Right.
some parents also very they said, okay, I can teach you, we can exchange a language. You can teach me Cantonese and I can teach you Urdu. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And that's it, you know, open dialogue. And you know, the parents are, I'm sure they're more than happy, because you're showing interest, you're showing that curiosity, you want to know more. And that is the key. That is absolutely the key, Christina. Well done you. That's excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. Right. So those are our 4 discussants and sharing for today. But we now have a Q&A session. So if you have a burning question that you would like to ask one of our discussants, or like just a general a question for our panel.
Hi, Dr. Chung, can I jump in? My name is Pooja Kapai, and I just really wanted to kickstart and follow on through with this fabulous discussion. You've got a great lineup. I'm so glad to see Narine and obviously Jeff, and I'm new to Christina and Dr. Ho, but again, it's really great to make your acquaintances. So I'm a professor of law at the University of Hong Kong, and I work on issues of diversity and inclusion. You know, just for those who might not be familiar, I compiled a report called the Status of Ethnic Minorities Report for the Zubin Foundation, where we basically pull together all of the data that highlight the life circumstances and experiences of minorities in Hong Kong. And so my reflections basically are that, you know, what happens at this very formative stage of education is so powerful, because it has this lifelong impact on the trajectory of minorities in Hong Kong. And so in that sense, just to tie some of the threads together, I loved where Narine started in terms of, you know, the language we use is so important. And I noticed that all of the presenters kind of use the term ethnic minorities, but there is now research out there. In fact, it's research that I've done with the Zubin Foundation that looks at how minorities themselves want to be referenced. And they've basically articulated that they prefer to be called Indian Hong Kongers or Hong Kong Indians. And so some variation of that. And in fact, in the among the younger generation of professional youth who are social workers and teachers, I'm hearing more language of ethnically diverse communities, and that's how they want to be referred to. And I think that this would be great to integrate into the spaces of education so that we can honor some of these voices, right? So that we can kind of take them and move along with the community together. The second thing that concerned me was, you know, all of the examples that Dr. Ho pointed to, and I think that those are so important and absolutely things that are happening all around us every day, with my kids included, who go to public schools and they face these kind of issues and questions all the time. And the hardest part, I think, about dealing with this at the school level is when we talk to teachers, they say that they have such an overwhelming burden in terms of the number of kids they have to take care of, that they don't have the time to do everything that Christina, for example, has been doing, and Dr. Ho is taking the time to do to teach, you know, his students. So the question is, how do we get around this, you know, imbalance of the obligations teachers have and their kind of sense that this is overburdening us or this is too troublesome? And then lastly, I really, really genuinely appreciate all of the sharing that Christina did earlier. And I'm mindful how that's such a great way to connect with parents. But on the other hand, I also think it's very important to think about how it's important to build a bridge, but also then to walk that bridge to go beyond the cultural celebration, beyond the flags, beyond the food tasting, beyond the language, but to go deeper and to really have some of those difficult conversations, which I think we're not having yet, as to why Hong Kong kids of minority backgrounds are not seeing the same kind of futures that their peers are in society. And there's nothing else holding them back. it invariably comes down to the fact that we're of a different ethnic background. And that comes down to the very deep-seated ideas of prejudice that Dr. Ho referred to. And on that front, I just recommend strongly that if anyone is short of data, I've done the first unconscious bias study in Hong Kong, which highlights very clearly that we're predisposed to biases towards South Asians in Hong Kong. And there's a lot of other data out there, which I'm very happy to share. If anybody is sort of saying, is this even a problem in Hong Kong? Are you unnecessarily worried about this? We're such a open, society and things like that. So I'm happy to help in any way I can. But thank you so much for drawing everybody together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pooja. That's great. Your sharing is very, very much appreciated. Thank you. Now we've got a couple of questions here. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to go through them all, but I have one question from Shahid Kareem. Welcome, Shahid. And you do have two questions, but I'm going to read one, okay, for our discussant. So for all the presenters, so it's open to whoever to answer. So a lack of intercultural understanding emerges as a recurring issue in the discussion today. I wonder if you could comment on how Hong Kong society and the education system can address the issue of intercultural ignorance for improved quality of education and ensure equal learning opportunities for all. Given the lack of multicultural education policy in the education system, how can schools ensure equal learning opportunities for all to develop a sense of belonging among all children?
Can I take it?
Of course you can.
From a policy perspective, of course, the best option would be a streamlined multicultural education policy, right? So then we can have some kind of accountability, develop some standards and develop some best practices. We are not near that at the moment, right? And I think and thank you, Pooja, for the comments. We are still looking at the lacking of that social justice, those systemic barriers that ethnically diverse members of Hong Kong society face. And thank you for that. Yes, language does matter, and we should take into account how people would like to represent themselves, right? Exactly. So at current, it's happening, I think, in an ad hoc basis, like we hear the efforts of Christina and what Christina is doing. But I think to see real systemic changes, there needs to be a streamlined policy. Otherwise, the baby steps that are being taken is teacher by teacher, school by school, principal by principal. Mm-hmm. And as far as to my knowledge, it's not compulsory for teachers to have intercultural competence trainings or modules as part of receiving their degrees to be educators in schools. If I'm not incorrect, it's not a compulsory aspect of teaching, of their certification or accreditation to become teachers. And someone who's more familiar with that can perhaps comment on that. But that could be a step as well, coming from at least the teacher education perspective.
Yeah.
If I may, this is something that I found in my schooling time as well, is that we're not even mentioned in local textbooks when ethnic minorities, the contribution, the sense of belonging into Hong Kong. I know a couple of years ago there was this really thing that was going on social media when they were describing ethnic minorities. It was about filling in which jobs they were more likely to be identified as, right? If someone was from Philippines, there would be a domestic helper. If it's an Indian, it'd be a chef, but they don't talk about this is why today many of my friends' kids, when they go to school, they say they still get asked by local Chinese kids, when did you come to Hong Kong? But not thinking actually, historically, we've been here 100 years now, and there's no talk about contributions or anything like that. Another thing is also, the lack of cultural knowledge is because there's no emphasis from schools to place that. Today I still get questions. Oh, are we allowed into a mosque? Are we allowed into a temple? These are basic things. So that's why, today I'm running these tours, passionately, because, it's bringing them to these sites so that they get firsthand experience and they can ask those questions. Because it's so sad today still when I'm taking university students on my cultural tours, they still can't tell me the difference between Hinduism and Muslims and, basic stuff like, you're using examples of Singapore. We'd love to be where Singapore is in terms of that diversity and knowledge. So still a lot needs to be changed kind of comprehensively in Hong Kong's education system in terms of race, culture, and identity.
Thank you, Jeff, for your feedback. I'm just going to move on to a couple more questions before we wrap up. So we've got Dr. Esther here. I am from Singapore. I'm married to an Indian Singaporean. Our children are examples, diversity in ethnicity. As communities around Asia are witnessing migration and are becoming increasingly heterogeneous, what effect do you think would a greater focus on multi-representational tools and the arts have on language teaching? Would one person from our panel like to answer this one?
Okay, maybe I can say something about this. I think that is the question about multi-representation tool. Does it mean that in the textbook then the kids, they can be portrayed from different ethnicity, this kind of things? If this is the case, then I think in a way I think it's better than it is indeed true that many of the textbook now, they are sort of, most of the picture in the textbook, they are portrayed from the mainstream perspective, and it is true. And I think a better way is indeed to have multiple representation of different group of people in the textbook. So in the Hong Kong case, maybe this means some Indians and some Pakistanis people in the textbook display. But having said that, I sometimes think, is it really that important? Because just turn it around to the mainstream case. If nowadays I change all the English textbook and I use all the Chinese phrase in all the English textbook, would the Chinese kid, their proficiency of English will be improved? Then I think probably it will not. It's not that effective in that sense. So I think there's something that it's good to have, but it's just part of it. Okay, so I think the teacher need to know actually the difficulty that the NCS kids have when they learn the Chinese language. They need to have a better understanding of the language. So, and I really appreciate what Christina effort to learn Urdu. It not just to learn Urdu, but also learn how to learn a second language. I think this experience can help teachers to teach the NCS children.
So I would like to, in addition to saying thank you to all of our the hosts and the speakers today, I also would like to say thanks to the members in my team, Sophie, Yana, and Maggie, who have been behind the scenes here coordinating everything. They are absolutely wonderful. So thanks to the three of you for all of your helping the internationalization team and for coordinating all of the different things that need to be coordinated here. Great job. So, so one thing I would like to mention, as you can see on this slide, is we would like to let you guys know that, because I know that we have many international colleagues in the sector here across the world, right? So we would like to let you know that in our Department of ECE here at EDU Hong Kong, we offer a wide variety of programs in early childhood education and family studies. We cover a whole range of study levels, from short courses, sub-degree, undergraduate degree, postgraduate degree, of course, PhDs and EDDs. So we would like to encourage everybody to take a look at the website of our department to get more information about the different courses and programs that we offer, right? So here are the different QR codes to our social media. We are on LinkedIn, Twitter, WeChat, Instagram, Facebook, everything. So you can keep updated on the news of our department and stay also tuned with all of the different interconversation sessions that we offer every time. So thanks everyone for being here today. It was wonderful to get connected with you again, and we will see you next time. All right, well, have a great weekend and see you again very, very, very soon. Bye-bye, everyone.